there's 67 congressional seats that have an African-American member of Congress. 67. Keep that number in mind. There are 56 members of Congress that are Latino. That does not mean all of them are in majority Black or Latino seats. There are some exceptions, but just to give a little background before Mike starts again on how many seats we're talking about. 67 Black seats, 56 Latino seats, Mike.
Chuck's talking 67 seats, which is why I was saying back in October, you guys are looking at the wrong battlefield. This doesn't matter. This dramatically changes the entirety of the way that Congress is apportioned.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Latino Vote podcast. I just got off a train in New York City, and I survived Mike Madrid, the White House Correspondent Dinner weekend, and wasn't nobody shooting at me.
Thank goodness, brother. I was worried about you. I'm glad everything turned out okay. Run us through it. What was going on? Where were you at and what was happening?
It was crazy town. It's the annual ugly person prom, I like to call it. Some people call it ugly Hollywood. Me and my wife sit on our couch, and I make fun of people on TV that are trying to dress up and act like they're at the Oscars. But the weekend was good up until the dinner. So there's a lot of folks, and this thing has began to begin earlier and earlier, Mike. When you were and I were a young man, you had a few brunches on Saturday, and the dinner was that night. Then we started getting a few parties on Friday night. Big shout out to Voto Latino, Maria Teresa Kumar, who had a big thing like she does every Friday night. Got to see your buddy, Senator Alex Padilla. That happened. The big changes this year before we get to the dinner was Grindr had a party, and Grindr, for those of you out there who may not know what Grindr is, it's kind of a hookup app for LGBTQ folks, and it is very popular, and they decided they would have their own party, and it was an impossible ticket to get, and everybody was there, and good for them. It was really fun. I did not go, but I heard it was really great. But what I want to talk about is I want to thank everybody who came to my brunch. And Mike, me and you've talked about this. 4 years ago, it was a dream. My wife would say I was just angry because I'm a Mexican redneck and never got invited to any party, which was probably true. So I built my own party to recognize our community and to lift up Hispanic journalists. Partnering with the National Association of Hispanic Journalists, we were standing room only, sold out, rooftop in the Southwest. We gave away 2 awards, one to Nick Valencia, independent media, used to be at CNN, covering all the ICE raids and the detention centers. We gave another award to Arlis Hernandez with the Washington Post, who's been doing amazing reporting on the immigration and the deportations as well, and gave our first annual New Media Award to Rafael Callaso, Puerto Rican in Philadelphia, who has been running a Latino podcast, Mike, for 13 years in community, who's been lifting up voices. And so it was really great. All of your friends asked about you, Mike. Everybody bragged about the podcast. Everybody was there. Y'all should check it out on media, but it was really good leading into the dinner.
It's really become an institution, Chuck. I'm proud of you. I remember we were first talking about doing it. I'm like, that's pretty bold. That's a good move, but it's smart. And I bet it gets really, really big. Every year it's getting bigger, more and more journalists showing up and recognize it's something that people look forward to. So proud of you, brother. That's awesome. Good. And good for representing the community.
Appreciate it. I want everybody to think about it next year. We're going to make it even bigger. But then the night of the dinner. Now, I had a ticket to the dinner, Mike, but it won't surprise you that your old man here don't like to stay out too far past 8 or 9 o'clock. We all have made fun of me about, so I'm like, I'm not going. It's too late. And Finn Gomez was like, well, come to the pre-party. I'm like, well, once I get in the bubble at the Hilton, it's hard to get out. I think I'm going to sit on the couch, right?
That's too many people for me, man. I know I'm that grouchy old hermit guy who just wants to sit in my house and read books and write and stuff. But those times for me, I think are gone. There's need to be at all that stuff and these big crowds. And it doesn't sound like fun to me.
Me and Ebony did it 2 years ago. We did the pre-party at the hotel, and my God, they were stacked in there like cordwood. Now, cordwood stacks really tight right up next to each other, so that's how the people were. But hat tip to the folks, and we got to see all of our friends. Oh, my God, we're so happy that nobody was hurt Saturday night, that this crazy man got taken down before something bad happened. But is it surreal is the right word, seeing all of our friends on the ground under tables, and for a little bit wondering, are we finna watch people die on TV? It was scary, Mike.
Yeah, I think we were all kind of like wrapped. I was walking back from, I think, a dinner, and I was like, oh my God, like I was walking with somebody going, I think there's another shooting with the president, the White House Correspondents Dinner of all places. Scary moment, man. These are those times where you got to realize, anywhere, anytime, it's just where we're at.
And it's the same day as my brunch, the Solidarity brunch, the Latino brunch. So Finn Gomez had just been at our thing. Alicia Menendez had just been at our thing. all these reporters, all the Latino reporters now come to the Brown and Bougie brunch,
Yeah.
and they're all there, and now they're dressed to the nines. They're all under the tables. I was just scared to death. Again, hat tip to Secret Service, hat tip to Capitol Police. Glad everybody got out of that. And I'm glad that we can put that behind us. My goodness, we can talk about Donald Trump's ballroom later in another episode because we're packed with real breaking news, Mike Madrid. I was on a train. They call it the Amtrak, the Acela from New York to D.C. this morning because I was up there last night doing the CNNs, talking about all this shit on the TV. And now I'm on the train. The Supreme Court Justice ruling comes down around the Voting Rights Amendment and this congressional district in the Louisiana that was trying to create a second one. I'm going to stop talking about it because you know way more about it. Explain what this means to voting going forward, Mike Madrid.
All right, this is really very significant, and it's not it was predicted by a lot of people who are looking at this. I first wrote about this on my Substack back in October. I just looked this morning because I was raising the flags, waving my arms, saying, y'all are getting involved in this mid-decade redistricting battle. You're missing the real fight. The real bomb is just underneath the surface. And this is a big effing deal. And today the bomb went off. And what it does is, this is Section 2 of the 1964 Voting Rights Act, was the last piece of that civil rights legislation signed by Lyndon Baines Johnson, good Texan, hat tip to you, Chuck, where this was the last untouched section. This is the last piece that has not been dialed back by conservatives in the government. Now, what happened was, what Section 2 allowed for was racial representation. In fact, what it said was, if there are underserved, underrepresented communities, there has to be a remedy to allow for representation in our Congress, because in the South, where this practice was largely played out, what would happen is, in a black city, a black part of town, white legislators would come in and they would crack these districts, these areas, by drawing them, small pieces of them, into 3 or 4 or 5 surrounding areas to dilute the black vote and allow white representatives to have a small black portion of their district, and therefore prevent black voices from being heard in the United States Congress. Well, that practice has continued, rightfully so, to allow for black seats. And that battle for black seats has defined a lot of the redistricting experience since the mid-1960s. But, and this is something that Madrid had been predicting for a long time, as the Latino vote changes, the whole underlying foundation of what racial representation means starts to waver. It starts to shake at its foundation. And lo and behold, in 2024, when half of Latinos vote for Donald Trump, the first thing I said publicly was, there goes the Voting Rights Act. And the reason why is because Latinos are now demonstrably not a voting bloc. You can prove it. And the fastest growing segment of the electorate is not a partisan voting bloc. And that raises a whole lot of questions. And while this issue is largely and still focused on the black voter and the black experience, as I would argue it should be, what this decision does is it says, how long are we going to keep doing black and or race-based districts? Like, is this a forever remedy? Is it something that lasts 10 years, another 100 years, another 1,000 years? Like, at what point do we have to acknowledge that this may be just dividing us? And I think in the black experience, the answer would be, yeah, pretty much forever, because I don't think we can get past this. We need to have black seats because we know what's going to happen. But Latinos present a very, very different scenario, a very different calculus, because the truth is, I don't know what a Latino seat really actually means anymore. And that's what Texas is about to find out with this new redistricting that they did mid-decade. Are those seats that are Hispanic majority Republican seats the way Republicans think? Or are they majority Democrat the way that Democrats think?
Just for all of you at home, so you get an understanding of how many seats Mike's talking about, is there 67 congressional seats that have an African-American member of Congress. 67. Keep that number in mind. There are 56 members of Congress that are Latino. That does not mean all of them are in majority black or Latino seats. There are some exceptions, but just to give a little background before Mike starts again on how many seats we're talking about. 67 black seats, 56 Latino seats, Mike.
No, that's perfect. And I didn't even know it was that big. So thank you for that context. But then the reason why what Chuck just said is so important is, remember, we're fighting over 3 or 4 seats state by state in these big states. Like, well, if Texas is going to take 5, we'll take 5. And Virginia's like, oh, yeah, well, we can get 3 more out of this. And then Florida's like, well, we can get 2 or 3. Chuck's talking 67 seats, which is why I was saying back in October, you guys are looking at the wrong battlefield. This doesn't matter. And Democrats, especially in Chuck's parlance, there's a word for you, screw on your wigs, take a little bit of a break here, sit down, maybe grab a cocktail. And if you haven't listened to the full part of this podcast yet, you might need to take a little breather if you're a Democrat, because this is going to sting, okay? This dramatically changes the entirety of the way that Congress is apportioned. I don't think that's an overstatement. That's why I was saying back in October, that's the real battle. Look over there, because that's a coming, okay? And you all may not like this, but hard medicine, when Democrats decided to play fire with fire, remember that? You're still saying that? You're going to fight fire with fire? Is that what you're going to do? When you lost the moral high ground? Remember that? Remember Mike Madrid was saying, you don't want to do that? You don't want to do that? Well, guess what? Fire's coming right back at you. And that's what this happens when you start to destroy the architecture of your government. When you start to mess with all of the rules, you lose the moral high ground. You lost the moral high ground, Democrats. You got no ground to stand on by saying we're better cheaters than the cheaters. And this is going to continue to devolve until we rip each other's eyeballs out and the republic comes undone. So I'm not advocating for any of this at all. I think it's terrible. I do believe that when Brett Kavanaugh asks the question, it is the right one. How long are we going to do this for? It is a question most particular to Latinos and Asian Pacific Islander communities who have a stronger propensity to be less partisan and less racially polarized than Black people and white people, who after 250 years of this country's history still can't get their shit together and get along. They still can't do it. But Latinos and Asians are in the middle going, well, with a pox on all your houses, y'all are messed up. You're both doing this wrong. And on the left, what you have is activists and nonprofits and consultants saying, we're really basically just Black voters. We want to be treated like Black voters in the Civil Rights Act. Well, good for them. They're making money and they're polling people and saying stuff that ain't true and making millions of dollars through nonprofits, driving this bullshit narrative. But our voters are not responding to that. Our voters are changing and nobody's giving voice to our voters. That's why this happens. Had people had just been advocating for the community, we wouldn't be in this zero-sum situation. Elections have consequences, as the great Barack Obama once said. He's right. This is what happens when you're in the find out phase of fucking around. You can't mess with this stuff. And if you want to fight fire with fire, you're gonna get burned. And today, it's a big effing burn. And we're just gonna have to see how big.
When did Kavanaugh say what he said? Was it in this ruling today or was it in the past?
It was in the hearings back in June of last year.
Tell me what you mean by that. When Kavanaugh says, how long will we do this for?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
What it means is a correct understanding of race and ethnicity means that they change over time.
Wait. Are you saying that he's saying that we don't need to do, we put these Black districts together, we're beyond that now. We don't have to do this anymore, or am I reading what you're saying wrong?
No, he is essentially saying we're over it now, but he asked the question to the court, if not now, when? Like, and what I mean by not time frame, what he's saying is, what are the metrics that we should be looking at to solve the problem that the 1964 Civil Rights Act was trying to say it was going to solve? And it's a really good question, and here's why, Chuck. In 1964, there's no question we needed to protect Black voices in our government. There's no question.
Right.
Okay? But if the solution is just to always have a Black seat, aren't we also creating a bigger social problem when the actual problem is to get to a point in American history where those lines don't matter, where we're not literally segregating ourselves and drawing ourselves apart? That's the question. And so if the answer is yes, we ultimately want to get to a point where a healthier, better society where we don't need Black districts, then what are the metrics that tell us that we've gotten there? And nobody has an answer for that.
So tell me this.
Because ultimately, real quick, last point, because ultimately, I would argue these aren't about race at all anymore. Well, let me qualify that. There's certainly a black exception. With Latinos, it's never been about race, or if it was, those days are gone. They are. That's what you can't get 50-50 in your vote and say you have a protected voting bloc. You can't. Like, just logically, you can't. So to me, if you're hitting 50-50 between Republicans and Democrats, that's not a protected minority class. That means these voters are voters. Latino voters are more than happy to make the decisions themselves. They don't need to bake in government to protect us as a minority. And you know what? We're not. We're not. And that's the change our community has to make. Sorry, go ahead.
Whether we're a minority or not, we all have a voting history. You can see that. It's pretty clear in the data on whatever you are. If you're college educated, non-college educated, black, brown, AAPI, whatever. So when I look at the map, and here's what I want, here's the question. I don't know that much about the Supreme Court. I don't know much about courts other than when I've been in courts and it was a bad experience. So I'll leave it at that. The thing that I want to know from a political operative's perspective on a train coming down, my first thought was this, is that we're supposed to redistrict every 10 years. There's a redistricting coming up in 5 years, y'all, maybe 4. And I'll let Mike react to this because maybe they could start even before then. Now that they've thrown this out, I want to ask you that, but that's not this question. My question is from a pure partisan perspective of way I view this, of what I think is going to happen. I need you to tell me if I'm wrong. And there's been this won't surprise anybody. There's been zero research on what I'm fixing to say. It's just my first thought. My first thought is in places, big places, where Republicans control the process, Florida, Texas, name your other red state. Now, because in Texas, those districts that you see behind me on this map, for those of you watching, you should be subscribing to the YouTube channel so you can see my maps behind me here. It shows you every county in America, shows you how the president did. It showed you how Congress did. Every year I get that because I can refer back to it quickly on how did that county do? Did it move left or move it right? And I don't have to do any research. And Mike knows I ain't good on a computer. So looking at this thing helps me every day. Now, what it tells me with this ruling, Mike, here's the question. Let me get through the diatribe. If I use the diatribes right,
you did it.
Is if in your red state, you can get rid of that blue seat that's in Dallas, that 2 blue seats that are in Houston, and that 1 stock Castro seat in San Antonio. All of those are stocked full of Democrats because they're black and Latino seats per, I think, what Mike's talking about with the Supreme Court. So red states could go in when they redistrict, whether it's middle of the time or, again, in 4 years, the 2 cycles when it's going to be done anyway, because that's the law for everybody listening. Every state does it. Texas could eliminate all their blue seats and say this state is all red now because we have drawn, and there's so many Republicans in Texas, you could do that pretty easily. It makes a few of them more where you could say it was a dummy man or whatever. All red gets redder. My other point is in California, Illinois, and New York, the Democrats do the opposite. Those few seats that are there, they go in and draw everything where all the congressional seats in California are blue. Am I misreading what is going to happen, or is that what I'm saying right?
No, that's exactly what's going to happen. But you nailed it. But let me explain this a little bit more. People, okay, look, the people who draw maps for a living, they're partisan. They're not the best, most independent, non-biased people coming down and trying to draw maps that represent the best districts to create a better America. Like, that's not a thing. The Republicans draw their maps. The Democrats draw their maps. They call each other racist. They call each other crooks. They're stealing elections. They go through all the political bullshit and shenanigans. And for the most part, both sides are 80% full of crap. Okay. And they're not political. They're not demographers. They're people that look at the voter file and go, oh, look, this district votes 3 out of 4 Republican, 3 out of 4 Democrat. We need these districts together to create a safer seat. How do we get the most out of, how do we get the biggest bang for our buck out from a party perspective? How do I draw these maps to get my Democratic Party the biggest advantage, as we did in California with Prop 50, or the Republican advantage as they did with mid-decade redistricting in Texas? Nobody is doing the right thing because it's the right thing. That's not happening, okay? This is all about partisanship. And here's where it gets interesting. We believed, because of the Black experience in America since the 1964 Civil Rights Act, that people of color, this term people of color, were all natural born Democrats. You come out of the womb and you're 80% propensity to vote for the Democrats. Well, guess what? That worked. And this really became heterodoxy in the Obama years. because everybody, all non-white people, which is what people of color really means, by the way, because if we say Latinos aren't monolithic, how the hell can people of color be monolithic? It's even less true with quote unquote people of color. The term people of color just means not white. So all of these people then are believed to be thrown into a bunch, and they carve out all of these districts and say, oh, okay, here's an Asian district, here's a Latino district, here's Black districts. But what they were really carving out was they were using race as a way to carve out more Democratic districts. And here's where it gets messy. Latinos for the past 35, 40 years have been voting 70, 75% for the Democrats. But the question as to why was something that nobody ever asked or answered. And so you had a lot of white Democratic map makers who would hire Latino pollsters to tell them this is where Latinos think, and feeding their own partisan loop. And they would create these districts that were really partisan, but use race as a justification to get there. And the reason why that doesn't work is what happens when the Latino voter changes. The way we have been for the past decade, the way yours truly wrote a book saying the reckoning is coming. The reckoning is coming, y'all. So all of these districts that you're drawing are really about creating advantages for the Democrats. They're not actually representative of the Latino community. That's what the Latino Democratic political structure has been doing. And in 2024, that collapsed. It collapsed. Now it's going to go back, but not because Latinos like Democrats. And that's the whole point. We shouldn't be drawing race-based maps for partisan advantage. It gets slightly more complicated, so bear with me. It is still legal, and this is a little bit batshit crazy, to draw maps based off of partisanship. You can't base them off of race, but you can base them off of partisanship. And so what was happening was Democratic map makers had both advantages. They would go in and draw race-based maps and say, oh, these are race-based, these aren't partisan, when they were actually functionally the same thing. And then on top of that, they would say, okay, now we're going to partisan gerrymander. So you would have these states with massive Democratic advantages, looking at you, California, right? And that's what happened in the South, is you would carve out all of these seats that were race-based, which were also giving the Democrats an extraordinarily significant partisan advantage. And they were saying this is about protecting race. And then our parties became identified with racial polarization, which is why Black voters don't leave the Democratic Party no matter how bad it gets, no matter how bad the economy gets, no matter how bad inflation is. They're not going to leave Biden-Harris. They're not going to do it any more than 2 or 3%. And guess what? Their white counterparts ain't going to leave the Republican Party. Doesn't matter how bad the economy is, no matter how bad inflation is, no matter how many forever wars we start again and again, even though the guy lies to them or helps a pandemic take root that kills 1 million people. They ain't going to leave the Republican Party. That's not healthy, brother. What is healthy is our community, which is telling both parties, you're both full of shit. And I don't care if you're Kamala Harris. If you're doing shit job on the economy, I'm going to kick your ass out. And I'm going to do the same thing to Donald Trump 3 months later. That's the way the system's supposed to work. So the irony of this moment is it's Latino voters that gave the rationale and the justification that race-based blocks, race-based districts literally are based off of an old assumption from the civil rights era on Black voters, not the new America that's emerging. Latinos and Asians are not as partisan. We're not as racially polarized. And that's why in my book, I say we're actually the hope of democracy. We're the ones that if America's going to survive, it's going to be because of us rejecting both of these parties that are doing nothing but trying to get partisan advantage. Because let's be honest, 95% of the Latino Democrats in the Democratic Party are Democrats before they're Latinos. Yeah, I said it. And the same thing of the Republicans, Latino Republicans in the party. They're more Republican than they are Latino. That's just the way it is. That's why we're doing this summit. We're pulling the people together that want to advocate for a community before they're advocating for our party. And that's what the magic is of what we're pulling together on June 23rd in DC, is a gathering of hundreds of very influential Latinos that are saying this old system is crumbling. This decision is a break in the dam of that type of thinking. Now, a lot of people are going to be like, this is the end. This is the end. It is the end. It's the end of your old racket. That shit don't work. You're going to have to go compete and listen to our voters now and fight for our votes, because you're not going to be guaranteed these blocks, which frankly were never representative of our community in the first place. Rant's over.
I gave you your time. And I'll see, might get all wound up. There's a guy who listens to our podcast every week. His name is Andrew Dressler. That's right, Andrew. You're probably listening to the podcast right now and you're screaming at the radio. Do you still listen on radio? On your phone? Whatever. Andrew was at my wedding. He's one of my best friends, and he's probably the best demographer I've ever met. And he's a data scientist. He is taught me more about data than I'll ever know. But in his firm, Haystack Analytics, that's a free shout out because he is such a good guy. They're out of Wisconsin. They're not even in DC. They draw some of the lines, and they draw some of the lines in Arizona and a few other places that have commissions. Good guys. And he's taught me a lot about it. And I'm just giving him a hat tip now, because sometimes he'll call me and explain to me about what's going on with the lines, especially when you get deep into this stuff. And he's helped me a lot understand the way that what you're talking about between race and Democratic or Republican performance. So hat tip to you, Andrew, because I know you're listening right now and your eyes twitching, because I don't know all this stuff. And you've helped teach me, like Mike has taught me a lot of this stuff, whether I disagree with Mike on some of it, and I do. The question I have, Mike, is this. It seems to me, again, very elementary thinking about this, but it seems to me like there are more places where Republicans would benefit because there's red states. Think about this, y'all, and this is what sits with me. In Missouri, there's a black seat in St. Louis, and there was a black seat in Kansas City, Missouri. And they did mid-cycle redistricting and got rid of one of them. They probably could pretty easily go in and get rid of the other one, because the other one's probably there, Mike, because it's there because of this thing that the ruling was on, ain't it? It's a black seat because it's supposed to be a black seat because...
Yes.
Okay. So that's one that could be eliminated. So you take that, and then you look at North Carolina and the black seat that's in Charlotte. Then you look at Georgia, Republican, just like North Carolina. Well, North Carolina is different because they have a Democratic. But in Georgia, black Atlanta, but red state legislature. They could easily draw out 2 black seats that are in Atlanta because, again, it's because of this Supreme Court thing, right?
Yes.
So my question is this. I can start seeing in my head where you start losing these seats in these red states that have these little blue enclaves of these big urban cities.
Yes.
And they're gone.
Yeah.
But in return, though, Mike, I don't know if there's enough, because there's still a lot of Republicans in California. There's a lot of Republicans in New York City or New York as a state.
There are more Republicans in California than any other state in the union.
True. So that's my point, is that it seems like Republicans have an advantage of getting more than we do, because there's only so much we can do in these blue states before we start dummy mandering ourselves and making a blue two. And so we're the advantage, to your point, of changing democracy forever. I could see 10, 15 seats that, even though we gerrymander too, when the time is right, we can't make up for those because we don't have enough people in those places.
What you're saying is this ruling will have a dramatic lean towards Republicans.
Yes.
There's no question that is true. But what you're saying is you're drawn
even if
out.
we gerrymander too, like there's only so much we can do.
Yeah, but here's the piece that everybody's missing. And I love Haystack, by the way. We can't wait to meet your friend Andrew Dressler. They're a really A++ firm. There is a remedy to all of this. Do you know what it is?
No, but I'm ready.
Winning elections. Go get your damn working class voters back. That's the way the system's supposed to work. Everybody's so fixated on gaming the damn system and rigging the whole freaking thing that their whole perception of everything is like, how do we rig it against the Republicans? How do we rig it against the Democrats? Fight fire with fire. You're going to do that, Texas? Well, we're going to screw you because we're California and we'll get Virginia. That is so destructive. That's what Mike Madrid has been saying. You start down this road of destruction. Why are you shocked when it happens to you? Your ass is gonna get burned when you're fighting fire with fire. There's one remedy. It's what the founders created. It's the most simple, obvious answer. Get your damn helmet on, get on the field, and go win elections. Win them honestly. Quit gaming the system. Quit trying to out-cheat the cheaters. Go win elections. That's the remedy.
I think that we're going to hear a lot more about this, and we're going to, my God, it just came down an hour ago when listening to Mike Madrid. Can you imagine after he sees all the fake analysis on Twitter that really pisses him off? He's going to be unhappy.
My heart's going to explode.
A little bit of hair he's got left, he's going to pull out. So I'm going to pivot to another thing that makes his eye twitch, which is the California governor's race, which we are in the heat of.
Yeah.
I was, again, trying to mind my own business in New York last night, trying to be a big TV media mogul like Baby Billy. And I see Mike Madrid out just railing on motherfuckers on Twitter about the people that are actually running the debate when the moderators ain't supposed to be the folks in the news about the debate. And I was like, I cannot wait to ask Mike Madrid what's going on in the California governor's
Worst
race.
debate ever, bro. Worst debate ever. It's the second debate out of 4 that are going to happen in California. Our ballots, by the way, Chuck, are dropping in 7 days.
7 days.
Yeah.
And I heard everybody in California gets 3. Oh, that's made up. They only get 3. Do they get 1 ballot or do they get multiple ballots?
You
one
get
ballot
one
per
ballot,
person.
bro. You get one ballot. Stop with that. Stop with that. It
Okay,
sounded like Donald Trump suddenly.
Okay.
Look, in California, we have a voting month. We don't have a voting day.
Everybody, they can count them for 6 months. We know.
It will take many months before we know who actually won. But
God bless democracy. I love it.
It's looking really good for Javier Becerra. Like, I keep talking this campaign. We did that really amazing video for here in the Latino Vote podcast, guys, that blew up. Thanks for sharing that.
For all of you listening, because Mike Madrid did this video now, there was a poll I saw, again, on the choo-choo train that actually showed Becerra winning the whole damn thing.
Becerra's now out front. He's the front runner now. He's winning. And I love this. I love this moment for California because you've got, and again, look, this poll was taken before tens of millions of dollars of negative coming from this Tom Steyer billionaire is going to beat the living crap out of Javier Becerra, right? We'll see whether or not his coalition can stand up against it. Imagine this for a moment, Chuck. You met Monique Limon, the Senate president of our Senate.
Oh, yeah.
You came out, you and I
Santa
spoke
Barbara.
from Santa Barbara. Great, wonderful friend, great woman, fantastic legislator, but perfect timing for her on a whole lot of things. She's the president of our state Senate, Democratic member from Santa Barbara. Robert Rivas is from Watsonville, Latino, the Speaker of the Assembly. If you have Javier Becerra as the governor, we will have the 3 most powerful position in both branches. Not just being Latino, which has never happened before, but Latino working class, every one of them the son or daughter of immigrants. Like, what a moment in American history. Extraordinary. And I think that if anybody's taken anything from this podcast, it's that's the future of the Democratic Party. Frankly, it's the future of the Republican Party. Whoever captures the heart and mind and aspirations of the Latino working class, you win. That's how you win. That's how you compete with this redistricting changes. You go start winning Latino working class voters. None of this redistricting stuff it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, man. You're winning the popular vote. You're running up the score. You're putting Texas in play. You're putting Florida in play. You're locking down Arizona. You're locking down Georgia and North Carolina. Who cares about the Rust Belt? It's over. Game over. Go ahead.
Get me a Steyer media contract and I'll give you all of that shit. My God, how much money has he spent?
Yeah, you can retire after that. A lot of Latinos on the Steyer campaign going to retire.
All 3 of those people you just talked about, Becerra and the Speaker. I'll put them all on payroll over here to Chuck Rocha Enterprise if you can get me a media contract with Steyer.
He has spent over $100. It's about $140 million right now, and he's sitting at about $140 million, and ballots haven't even dropped yet.
And he's got to be winning by a lot.
He's sitting at 14%, which means $10 million per percentage point.
If you do the math, when we get done with this, we're going to break that down per vote for him and find out how much per vote that's going to get him.
Boy, so pulling out today, to your point, after this debacle of a debate, it's just the moderators were talking more than the candidates. They had 5 moderators rotating him in 3 different sections. It is bad, dude. Just bad.
My God.
But here's the point. New polling out today shows Javier Becerra in the lead of all of the candidates, including the Republican. This is a very significant moment. He's clearly the front runner now. Front runner status has been unlocked. He's leveled up. He's going to be the target of everybody coming after him. We have a podcast with Antonio coming out. It will be out before everybody hears this, where I sat down and kind of interviewed him, talked about him and the race and where this is going. Antonio was on stage last night. They actually did very well. This is a new dynamic, though. This opens up a whole new opportunity for the Democratic Party to recast itself, because the way and look, I've been critical of my Republican Party. I'll be very critical of the Democratic Party too. Tom Steyer is a rich white billionaire who owns 3 or 4 houses that are worth $20+ million in the California coast.
I'll take one of those.
I'll take just half of one of those. And by the way, that's kind of the voter that has dominated California politics for the past generation. Now you've got Latino working class voters rallying and saying, enough of this, man. These are the guys that created the affordability problem. These are the guys that have been regulating us down to nothing, and we can't buy homes. Our schools aren't working. Our kids aren't achieving. We're not moving up that ladder. That the California dream, let alone the American dream, is gone. There's an opportunity to bring that back. And that's what happened in that video. If you haven't watched that video, we'll put it, it's here on our YouTube channel. We'll link back to it. It shows these working class voters saying, I'm done with this party leadership, man. I want a voice. I want to vote for who I want to vote for, not who I'm told to vote for. So big moment. Really proud of him. Like I said, I'm a big Javier fan. I've become a big fan. The state seems genuinely excited about him. Can he withstand all the negatives that are coming and tens of millions of dollars calling him a bad guy? I don't know. I don't know if he wins. I don't know if he gets out of this, but for the moment, it's a very important chapter in Latino history, Latino voting history, Latino political history, not just in California, but for the rest of the country. So that's kind of where the race
My
stands,
message
Chuck.
on California is, look, if you want our vote, no peso, no say-so. Chuck Rocha said it here. You want to spend some money to come talk to us. I don't mean just in Spanish, but Spanish would be a good starting spot. And then some other ads where you're actually showing up where Latinos who speak English or Spanish are actually consuming media saying, Latino Californian, my gente, here's my vision for California. I hope you like it. Maybe you'd consider voting for me. I think that we haven't done everything right in the state. Own up to some of the mistakes that have been made. I'm not a California consultant. Obviously, I'm not smart enough to get to work out there because those consultants, Mike Madrid, think that they know everything about everything in California. All I'm saying is spend some money to tell the people what you're thinking. Now, look, Mike, I want to switch gears really quick. Look, this is my microphone. We're going to do what I just thought about doing, which is going to be called show and tell. That ain't going to be like that show. No, I'm keep my clothes on.
Don't do
so
that,
look
Chuck.
here. You see the map behind me. For all of you YouTube listeners, y'all should be looking at the YouTubes now because I'm going to do what I'm going to see if my cord will reach this far. This is the map of the country. I'm glad I wore blue jeans today because I got up known everywhere. This is Florida. Look how red Florida is. Mm-hmm. See, there ain't, but let me hang on a second, Mike. I'm going to stop real low. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 counties in 2024 elections by county. Mike, who's a demographer and thinks he's a data scientist. These are counties won by Trump or Biden and how much darker red, darker blue, okay? Only 5 counties in the whole state of Florida that voted for Biden, 5. And Mike, I'll draw your attention to Miami, which for the first time in history, you know this, voted red when they had normally voted blue in every presidential election.
Right.
Well, I tell y'all this and show you this, to get some of you YouTube subscribers to join and become subscribers. But I'm telling you that because Florida just redistricted, to Mike's point about let's all redistrict each other. And they have drawn some hellacious lines. This is the governor draw them. He kept them really tight. He sent them to the state legislature. Now they have to approve them. And I think they don't want the fight, even though the speaker in Florida, Mike, hates DeSantis. They got this Republican on Republican shit. But my people in there says it's got a pretty good chance of passing. Now, if it does, girls and boys of the Latino Vote podcast, they've eliminated the Democratic seat in Tampa. Think about what Mike Madrid just said. Mike Madrid said, if this is before the court ruling now, it gets even worse now after the court ruling. But now they went into Tampa and there was an enclave, right, of Democratic voters in Tampa. And they went, Mike, and busted them up and put a little bit of them in a bunch of other districts. Now there's no Democrat in Tampa, Florida. In Orlando, Mike, there were 2 Democrats sitting side by side. Again, YouTube listeners, we're doing sock puppets. You should be watching this. You have Maxwell Frost. You have Darren Soto, both Cuban, Afro-Latino. Darren Soto, Puerto Rican, very deep roots. Orange County, Osceola County, side by side, great representation for that community. 2 folks down there that look like the community. They represent them well. They just take the Darren Soto race and go, fuck you, you're gone. Take some of those Democrats, put them in Maxwell Frost district, make it even a super Democrat, and then take the other 50% of the Democrats and split them up into districts like a wagon wheel, right? Yeah. That's how they get rid of that one. And in South Florida, they get rid of a seat, and they take all the Democrats side by side and create 3 seats and draw the Republicans between them. And now you have 5 or 4 Democrats down there that have to figure out how to run in 2 or 3 seats. But this is how what Mike has talked about now comes to fruition, right, Mike?
Yes.
Without the court ruling.
without the court ruling. That's yeah, but like I said, like the idea that somehow these parties think that Latinos are naturally their constituencies, both of them, they're just making these bad assumptions. It's like, how much more evidence do you need than the past 18 months in this country? Like the Republicans completely screwed the pooch on this, right? But guess what? The Democrats screwed the same pooch 8 months before that, and they forget and just think they're all smart again. It's like nobody learns their lesson. But the Biden-Harris team, remember, like, people were out there going, 90,000 new Latinos were being registered every day when Kamala Harris is announced, and they're thinking it's like 80% Democrat, and they're going to win because of the Latino vote, and what happens? The election comes out, and it's like, nope, you all were electing. If it was true, by the way, a lot of these Latino nonprofits were playing with the loosey-goosey with the truth. But let's just say it was true. What it means is you were registering Republicans, which makes them all very uncomfortable, which is why no one talked about it, by the way. Everybody just went all quiet. My point here is this. It's not to criticize these groups, not too much anyway, but it's to be honest about what's going on. Nobody has a lock on our community. And by the way, that's our strength. It may not be a partisan strength, but it's our community's strength. And if anybody knows anything about why I'm here, I care about my community a hell of a lot more than I care about my party. And I certainly care about it a hell of a lot more than the other party. I am a Latino. I will fight for the people in my community, whether you agree with me or not. I'm going to fight to give you a voice. That's what matters. And the truth is, as uncomfortable as it is for partisans who may be listening to the show, that's what's happening. We're flexing our power. We're demonstrating our voice. You want to crack us up and crack up our communities? Go for it. We're still going to have influence. We're still going to have our say. You think you're going to crunch us, Latinos in the Rio Grande Valley, into newly impacted Republican district? Watch this. Mess around, find out, right? Here it is. Watch what happens to Republicans who play that game. They're going to learn a tough lesson, and they should. That's not how we vote. That's not how we think. But everybody in D.C. and all these state capitals have all these preconceived notions of who we are, and they're all wrong. And today is just another brick in the wall. And I'm so proud of our voters because we will punish those people, both sides. Let's say, we're tired of this system. This is just a game for both of you, and no one's better, no one's worse. And you know what? They're right.
And right now, they're pissed at Republicans, and we're seeing that everywhere when they vote. And that makes me say, pay attention to Florida. I mentioned Florida because Alex Vindman, you remember Alex was a lot like Mike Madrid. He spoke up against Donald Trump in the first administration. He's actually, Mike, you've met Alex. We've talked about him here before.
Alex is a hero. He's a friend. He's a hero.
So somebody like him running for the Senate in Florida 3 years ago, people would have laughed. Oh, there's no way. We have all these gains. This is the opposite of what Mike's saying, but in another context. There's no way Latinos would vote for a Democrat in Florida. Trump has done this, and DeSantis has done this, and Latinos in Florida are gone, quote unquote. Well, fuck around and find out. I'll say the word. Like, he runs a real race. He's a refugee. He's come here escaping a socialist and dictatorship in Russia, and has put together a professional campaign down there, raised $9 million in the first quarter against a woman, Moody, Mike, who's a Republican appointed for the Rubio seat, who's never had to seek election for the U.S. Senate.
Yeah.
Who was an attorney general who never had any opposition, who's never been tested. It's those kind of races, y'all, that I would really pay attention to this year. Sure, there's going to be a lot of focus on the Texas Valley. Sure, everybody's going to be in California 22 in the Central Valley of California. Those are big races. We talk about them. But watch these races like Iowa governor's race. Watch these races like the Florida Senate race. Watch the Senate race in Alaska. A lot of things are going to happen this year because there's a war. Gas is almost $5 a gallon. If not that, in California, $6 or $7 a gallon. Like, there's a lot of things happening in our country. And I think we're going to talk about a lot of that as we lead into this Latino summit that I think Mike described very well, of us bringing lots of folks together. If there was anything I learned from our brunch this weekend, is there's a lot of folks, A, hurting, B, needing to tell those stories, and C, looking for solutions. You should be getting a save the date. We're going to send out an email this week, and you should have gotten it by now. If you didn't get an email and you want to come, you should DM the Latino Vote Podcast at Gmail and give us the reason why you should be invited if you weren't invited to come. It's going to be a smaller group to begin with, but we're sending out those save the dates. We've now secured a pretty good amount of sponsors. Me and Mike have been meeting to put together what the panel topics will be, which will be a lot about this and what we talk about here with who we are, what we want, and what we demand, and what are our issues, along with a town hall at lunchtime. So we're super excited to bring you that on June the 23rd in Washington, D.C. for a one-day summit. And we appreciate all of you listening. And we're going to be back next week. And we want to make sure that all of you knew that we are here. We're listening to you. We want to make sure that when all the breaking news is happening, you need to like and subscribe. Don't forget that YouTube channel. I keep saying that because you get to see my pretty face and hear Mike scream. If you're still lucky enough to have your mom and dad, you should give them a call and tell them you love them. Until next week, y'all be good.